Hey everybody, it's Jeff with Cover the Camper. Well, today we're going to be installing the WeBoost Drive Reach cell signal booster. This is the 5G compatible system into a Lance truck camper. So there's the system. Take a look at some of the specs here. So for those of you who might not be familiar with cell phone signal boosters, mobile cell phone signal boosters like the WeBoost Drive Reach, there's a variety of manufacturers out there with a bunch of different signal strengths and boosting strengths. So just go and do your due diligence, shop around and see which one might be best for you, because there are different systems that might work better for your particular situation. So on these systems, you've got an outdoor antenna that mounts to the roof at some place on the roof, or to your roof ladder, or some other place that you might find more convenient up high. So up on your roof or on the ladder is usually the most common place. That antenna communicates with the cell towers. That signal is routed through coaxial cable to a signal booster inside your coach, and then that boosts the signal. There's an indoor antenna that's then again boosts the signal out to your devices. So you've got a boosted signal inside your coach while you're driving or when you're stationary. And again, it is 5G compatible. It's also compatible with all the major US networks. So the main ones being, like AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, those types of things. So compatible with all those. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. See what we've got inside. So their packaging is really nice. This is the cardboard box that's inside the sleeve over there. So we've got instruction and installation manuals. We've got some thread locker, some blue thread locker, and it looks like the side outlet for the cable. We've got the spring mount for the antenna. This is our indoor antenna. This is what's gonna throw the signal out inside your coach, and it's got, I believe it said it's a 15-foot cable. I'd have to double check. It's either 15 or 20 foot. And this is the outdoor antenna. We've got, I believe, 25 feet of RG6 cable. Ladder mount, if you want to mount it to your roof ladder. Got the AC plug, and of course you can run this off of an inverter, just a small inverter. Got the indoor amplifier, really nice. It's got some Velcro on the back for connecting it, so feels really solid. So we'll have to double check and we'll look at the power consumption so we can make sure that the little inverter is big enough. Got these little adhesive tie downs for the cable. And then we got the antenna extension post right there. So this gets screwed into the base of the antenna, and then you can have your spring mount and get some extra height. So on the plug here, I don't know if that's going to focus or not, but it's 1 amp AC. So we'll do some testing. I'll connect it to my kilowatt meter, and that way we know exactly what it's pulling. All right, so I'm up here on the roof of this Lance truck camper doing the installation on the WeBoost cell booster. I'm going to install the antenna on the satellite dish. The satellite dish isn't actually being used at the moment, but that way I can, the customer can crank the antenna up and down for travel and for stationary use. I went ahead and mounted the bracket to the back side of the satellite dish mount, and I'm going to run the cable just straight across to the refrigerator vent, and right in this area is where that little compartment is where I'm going to put the booster, and there's a 12-volt plug there. There's also an AC outlet there for when the customer is parked at either an RV park or using the generator power. All right, so I am going to go ahead and use the spring mount. That will mount directly to the stainless steel plate that I've already got mounted to the satellite dish with some blue thread locker. I'll use the extension, and then this is where the cable comes out the side of the extension, where I will be attaching it directly to the roof using the double back tape mounts and some sealant. Throw a little bit of this blue thread locker on, just a couple of drops. Doesn't take much, just a little bit like that. There is a little beauty ring that slides on. It's also got a little notch for the hole in the mount, so it's all nice and steady. It's a 7/8 inch nut. Snug that up. Now I'll take the antenna. Got to take this little cable protector off. Got to thread the antenna through like that. And that screws on. Okay. And then where the cable comes out the side here, and then I am not going to use thread locker on this part. That way, if the customer wants to remove the antenna, they can do so without too much effort. And it's not required on this fitting anyway. All right. So that's how the antenna will sit, just like that. I'm going to take a little bit of cleaner. We want a clean surface where these double back connectors for the cable are going to be adhered to the roof all the way over to the refrigerator vent. I'm just going to remove the sealant off of the 4 mounting screws that hold down the refrigerator vent cover. Get that removed so I can remove the screen. If you remember in a previous video, I put a bug screen on this refrigerator vent. And I'm going to remove that, and then that way I can run the cable in to the area in this inside, right in this area where the TV 12-volt plug is and the cable outlet is. These are 5/16. All right, you can see where the solar cables go through the wall there. I'm just going to run this cable through that same hole and zip tie everything down, making a nice clean install. So this is the end. Hopefully you can see that if I'll focus on it. That's the end that goes into the antenna booster, the amplifier. So that'll go through there. And this is the end that gets connected to that end on the antenna, on the outdoor antenna. All right, so there's the refrigerator. We've got this little pantry here, and then this is the little area up above that pantry and the refrigerator where those wires come through. So I'm going to pull that 12-volt plug and the cable outlet plug or faceplates off and remove those plates, the outlets themselves, so I can get my hand up in that area up above the pantry and refrigerator, pull that cable through. All right, so the cable on the back of the 12-volt and television cable outlet is for the antenna for off-air stations. And then this one here, that plate there, and this cable goes out to the side of the coach for cable TV at like an RV park. I'm going to go ahead and connect my cell phone antenna booster cable to this plug here. All right, so there's the cable for the cellular booster antenna, and now I'm going to run it. I'm going to remove this cable and run it through that faceplate. All right, so I've made sure I've got enough cable, measured it out, made sure I've got enough cable, and I went ahead and put the screen back on. Tidied this up a little bit with some zip ties, so it's nice and secure. It won't fall down and hit the fins on the refrigerator, and it doesn't block anything. I can go ahead and get this cover back on, and then get the cable secured down to the roof, and then I'll go back to the inside and finish up. All right, so I'm going to make sure that I've got enough cable by leaving like an extra foot that way, because this thing does spin if the satellite dish is ever used in the future. So I'm going to make sure that I've got enough for that, and I'm going to run my zip tie through. All right, so I've got the nut and cover resealed, just the mounting screws, and all the little ends trimmed off of the mounting tabs. And go finish the install on the inside. All right, so I've got 12-volt power to the little inverter here. I'm plugged in, and we've got our cable from the outdoor antenna coming in. And I'm just going to mount the amplifier right back there in that corner. Get everything plugged in and plug in the inside antenna and then test it out. All right, so I've got 1 bar of AT&T LTE cell signal out here in the camper without the booster on, and I'm gonna plug it in here in just a second and see what that increase is. All right, you can see on my kilowatt meter plugged into the inverter here, I've got 118.6 volts. 118, well, somewhere around 118 volts. Okay, so you can see now with the amp plugged in, I've got full bars of AT&T. So it's working great. I'm going to do a quick download for data real quick, and I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi because it's still seeing Wi-Fi from my house. I'm going to turn my Wi-Fi off, and then I'll do a download just on AT&T cell service. All right, so I'm starting the test. It's finding the provider. So it looks pretty good. I mean, anywhere between 12 and 16, that's what I get in my house. So I've got a great big rooftop antenna for AT&T. Let's see the upload. Upload's pretty good. I mean, well, it's getting better. Yeah. looks pretty good to me. I mean, that's as fast as I get in my house with my large antenna, so I'm happy with that. So when you plug in the booster, you're going to get your green indicator light for power. Again, there's our outdoor antenna plugged in, our indoor antenna, and then the power. So we've got our indicator light, and as you saw on the speed test, we're looking good. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to get this amp mounted up in this cabinet and tidy up the wiring a little bit, and we should be good to go. By the way, the power consumption is about 13 watts. So not too bad. 13, 14 watts. All right, so just mounted it to the back wall there. It's got a little clip back on it, so you can unclip it. And the cable just runs up by the ceiling. And we can grab our antenna and bring it out. It's got about, I think it's got 20 feet of cable, 15 to 20 feet of cable on the inside antenna, so you can pretty much move that thing anywhere. So when it's plugged into the inverter, obviously you're using the 12 volts when you're out boondocking or whatever. It's plugged into that little inverter. If you're hooked up to an RV park, shore power plug, or if you're using generator power, it can plug directly into the 120 outlet that's in here, right next to the booster. So you don't have to be using the 12 volt power all the time. You can actually use the 120. And it's cool that this the 12 volt outlet is on a switch outside of the cabinet, so you can turn it on and off without having to reach up in there, which is nice. Oh, so that's what it looks like with the antenna up. It's pointing straight up and down. I'll go ahead and crank it down and make sure that the cable has clearance that it needs. Now, this particular satellite dish antenna is on the manual crank, so I'm just going to count the rotations to straight up and down, and that way my customer will know exactly how many full rotations this has to be turned for a straight up and down orientation on the cell phone antenna. All right, so 15 full rotations. And then that gets us laying flat on the roof for stow mode for travel. All right, so just because I'm curious, I'm gonna go ahead and power the cell amplifier back on and see what the signal looks like with the antenna lowered all the way in stow position. So, maybe if there's not a whole lot of difference, in most cases, you wouldn't even have to crank the antenna up. So let's check it out. All right, so in stow position, power on. It's got to go through its little, well, there it goes. So yeah, I mean, full signal with it in stowed position. So, we're about 4 miles from the nearest, or about 4 miles from the nearest AT&T tower. And, in most cases, you could probably just leave it, stowed down. It's a pretty powerful antenna. And I'll go ahead and turn the power off and see I've still got 1 bar. So just 1 bar with the power off on the booster. So it's doing its job. Well, there you have it, a WeBoost Drive Reach cell signal booster on a 2002 Lance truck camper. Works great. Probably gonna have to get one for myself. Hopefully this installation video helped you guys. If you want to install one for yourselves, catch you on the next video. Later.